The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The Three Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company. Home delivery available in Regina at sassbeerdelivery.ca. Welcome!
That's a good one.
To the Three Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only inappropriate John Photos podcast. I am Joel Gasson with John Fraser as
Going
usual.
there off the top, eh?
Yeah, we're going there right away. Plenty to get to in this episode as always. The Grey Cup matchup is set. It is pretty much the perfect cherry on top for Rider fans this season, as we'll get into. Yes, the Argos and the Blue Bombers will play for the 109th Grey Cup in a week's time in this fair city. Or my fair city, at least not yours, John. But
fair province. They're like trying to make it a provincial thing. There's like pancake breakfasts and stuff. There's none of the like exclusive pay $300 to hang out with Colin James parties, but like we got some free pancakes going down on the street. Woohoo! I know where I'm going for breakfast on Wednesday.
So we're gonna break that down a little bit. We're also going to talk about the division finals, which of course happened earlier today, and yeah, plenty of football talk this week, which I know is kind of weird for us, but that's kind of the time of year it is. We got lots of time ahead of us in the next number of months to just talk about absolutely nothing. So.
It's true, and after coming out of the COVID pandemic, where we got really good at talking about absolutely nothing, do not fear, that shall continue.
Before all that, though, we have to air something out a little bit here, John, because my eyes are still recovering from a picture you sent me earlier today. It was quite offensive and disturbing all at the same time.
I mean, I know I had been drinking pretty heavily at a stag on Friday night, and I know today I decided to take some fairly obscene photos, and I don't know why I thought you would enjoy that. Like, I just thought, like, having the bromance that we do, that you'd like to see what I'd sent you, but I guess I was completely wrong.
Yeah, no, that was not up my alley whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm very sorry, but it's a tradition. It's something that me and my Bomber fan buddies do, and I wanted to let you in on that part of my life by taking a perfectly framed photo and sending it to you. I thought the photography was really good, and I mean,
it was all right.
It was just, I mean, it's not like the glamour shots you take of some of your beers, you know, and I'm not married to a photographer, but I mean, it was just a Labatt Blue. I mean,
3 of them.
3. Yeah. That's actually, it ended up being 3. And as I mentioned, my Bomber fan friends and I, dating back to the 2019 West Final with the old doink off the post game. Would that be the 2021? No, 2019. So we decided that to change the fortunes, and we're all like, my buddy that came up with the idea is one of those guys that likes $300 bottles of scotch. Like, he has very good taste. And we all know my love of craft beer. And he's like, no, we have to get, like, make our entire body, like, you know, we're dressed in blue and gold. We have to make our insides blue as well. And the only way to do that, he had decided, was to drink a king can of Labatt Blue. So before the doink game, which I feel like was caused by the Labatt Blue, we drank king cans. Led to a victory. Drank it before the Grey Cup. Led to a victory. Drank it before last year's West Final. Led to a victory. And the Grey Cup. So, although my friend Tornado is in Australia right now, I still had to shoot a video and send him that, yes, I was upholding the tradition. But I couldn't find a king can. And I had finished the first Labatt Blue by game time. And this is right where there was the right when it looked like the Bombers going to be in Death Star mode. And then there was the weird roughing the kicker and then the weirder punt muff. I'm like, that's it. I got to have more Labatt Blue. A beer that is so foul that even Max, my 7-year-old, said, Daddy, why are you drinking that? It doesn't even smell good. He also said when I brought it in from the liquor store, why would you buy that? It looks gross. And he's just looking at the cans.
You should be, I mean, you should be proud to some degree, at least.
I was very proud. But, like, then I felt ashamed, too. And it's like, remember when you were like young and not like super confident, where you like maybe in high school, you had to like walk into the local pharmacy to get some condoms?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that when I walked up with this 6-pack of Labatt Blue and the lady at the liquor store struck up a conversation. I didn't even go to my usual liquor store.
That's
I was
fair.
that ashamed. I'm like, I've got like 2 regulars, one of them being Sobeys Liquor, the other one the Co-op up on 8th Street. I went to a different liquor store that I won't even say the name of because I didn't want anybody to see me in here. And walked up with this 6-pack.
Were you wearing like glasses with a nose and mustache on them? And
I wish I would have been, because I just taken my kids to the mall. No, I was wearing my Justin Jefferson jersey, so I was like standing out like a giant purple thumb. And this very pleasant cashier decided to strike up a conversation with me, and I'm like, I feel so dirty. I feel
please
like
just let me pay for this and shame and leave, please.
Exactly. Like just like let me get out of here. Like let me get out of here with my embarrassing items and move on with my day. But that was not the case. We had a great conversation. Turns out a car drove through the store the other day, and she gave me very intricate details of the guy that drove his car into the liquor store. So yeah, but because I was feeling such misery from drinking 3 of those, and I still have 3 more in my fridge for next weekend, I had to share with you, and I'm sorry that I offended you and made you possibly burn your retinas out and maybe judge me just a little bit.
Just a little. I mean, there should have been like a content warning or something on that photo, maybe.
It's like when you go on Twitter and it's like blurred out before, like
Fake Gainer's been posting those clip art edits of Bo Levi Mitchell and Ryder jerseys with that lately.
Those are outstanding, though. Like,
yeah.
Anything that man, woman, gopher does is just great. I also did find out the pancake breakfast for free all week because of the Grey Cup Festival is not far from my house, and it's free.
Yeah.
There's no way they look as good as they do in this ad, but...
heavens no. I mean,
like
do pancakes ever really look good?
Are pancakes ever... I feel like pancakes are an overrated breakfast food as it is.
Yeah, that's fair. They're fine.
They just, but they're not even fine. They make you feel like bloated and slow. They're not greasy enough to be a great hangover cure.
No, they're definitely not that. No.
Like and they're just like a syrup receptacle. Like if I want something sugary, if anything, it just makes your hangover worse because you just feel bloated and yuck the whole day. And maybe this is because I have no self-control and can't eat 1 and I instead eat 17.
That might be more the issue than the pancakes themselves. But yeah, I would say for the most part, there's nothing really that redeeming or remarkable about pancakes. If you really want the like syrup receptacle in the morning for your breakfast, waffles or French toast are definitely far superior.
By far better, and I don't find they make me feel like such a fat piece of shit. I don't know what that is. There's no science behind it. And this pancake breakfast
really, wow.
And this pancake breakfast could not be in a more random spot.
Yeah.
It's just in some random park on Ruth Street in Saskatoon. There's nothing really nearby. It's just in a park down a street.
Are you sure this isn't some kind of scam or something? Like this is actually a real thing? They're not trying to like lure people to a cult or something?
I don't know. It's on the Grey Cup Festival's website.
Okay.
Sorry, I should be 503 Ruth Street. I said 508.
You would have sent people to some other random location.
I should 5 house points down, I guess. All right, so 503 Ruth Street East. No better. It's even more of a like looking nothing kind of park thing. That it's so far from downtown. It's not near any restaurant. Where the hell are they getting a power source or pancakes for this damn thing?
I don't know. Garbage fires.
I'm curious now. Like I am off Wednesday. I think after I drop the children off at school and daycare, I have to go try one of these, maybe recruit me to a cult pancakes that are taking place in the middle of a park, nowhere near anything in Saskatoon.
I think you should do that, and you should report back if you're able to after you join the cult.
That's fair. This might be a very different podcast after.
Just don't drink the Kool-Aid, all right?
That's fair. No, or have any of the lettuce. I don't know why you'd have lettuce with pancakes, but
oh God, yeah, that would be that would be probably like the worst combination for you based on how you've described what pancakes do to you, and then you throw some Subway. Like if Subway had pancakes and you put lettuce on top of that, that would be like that would be the end of John Fraser.
I feel like they cancel each other out though.
Do you? I don't
know. Like one makes the guts put the evacuation button on. The other one just makes me feel like a fat piece of shit. And it's just weird that the pancake breakfast is in Saskatoon. Like, wouldn't you have a pancake breakfast in Regina?
Oh, there's a bunch of them. Like Spirit of Edmonton has theirs every year, and I'm sure
Yeah, but,
there's all kinds of things going on. So.
Nobody's paying $300 for a breakfast that has any sense to themselves. I love the Spirit of Edmonton. That is probably one of my favorite parties. But to ask $300 for that, now again, I digress. If the booze is free, I don't know if it is. If the booze is free, I take that back because I could drink $300 worth of booze while eating pancakes.
Especially at how much booze costs now, so that's easy enough.
Oh yeah, that's like four. Sorry, the Calgary Grey Cup Committee does have a pancake breakfast on Elephant Street in Regina.
Yes. That sounds about right as well, too.
Oh. Seems to ramp up on Friday there as I'm looking through the Grey Cup Festival website.
Fair enough. It usually does, yeah.
Yeah, because, I do research now on this podcast.
Yes, because you are in a fancy new office set up with multiple monitors to watch nothing.
Especially not tonight when my fantasy football matchups are all decided and there's no World Series, so...
And so, yeah, another championship series is on the way. The Grey Cup will be played. And basically a week from now, we'll probably be crowning a champion as we record this at about 8 o'clock on Sunday night. But before we get into all the football talk ahead, John, without embarrassing yourself, what is in the glass this week for the Pile of Bones Brewing Company?
Lucky Bastard vodka. Had to redeem myself. Had to cleanse my insides of the filth I just put through it.
Yeah, you might need that might have had to have been a little stronger. Maybe just neat, like vodka with just like a spritz of lime in it or something. I
mean, I'm not far off. This was a very aggressive pour because betwixt that Vikings game and immediately watching the Western Final after that, I really needed to calm the nerves, and I don't think I could do this stone. So there ain't much. It's pretty close to being neat. There's some melted ice cubes and a little bit of lime, but that's about it. Because the nerves are fucking shot, Gas. What can I tell you? Holy shit.
For me, I picked up the new 4-pack from 9 Mile Legacy Brewing. The Yevshin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I have no clue. I have no Ukrainian.
Actually, you're very close. I'll give you credit for that.
It's a fundraising thing. It's a honey wheat ale inspired by Saskatoon's Ukrainian folk ballet ensemble. A group just dedicated to the preservation of Ukrainian dance in Saskatchewan. So good fundraising beer. Nice, light, easy drinking, sort of along that Belgian wit almost kind of style.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So very, very tasty. I'm finding it.
I like the little subtle hint of cloves in it. Because I definitely, like I said to you, when Lacey tags me on Facebook,
yes.
9 miles.
When Lacey's giving you the go-ahead to buy a beer, then I guess you pretty much just have to, right? So
I went there, and see, I didn't have to feel shame to walk into 9 Mile and purchase those, unlike the Labatt Blue.
No, and we shall never speak of it again.
No, until next week when I have to drink those other 3 pieces of shit in my fridge.
You can do that, but we're not talking about it.
Okay, fair enough. Although depending how the game goes, we might have to talk about it.
Yeah, because the end of the West Final got a little interesting.
Oh boy.
And I know they're all saying the right things right now, reading the post-game comments. Of course, if you missed it, the Bombers beat the BC Lions 28-20. So they're off to their third straight Grey Cup and will be favorites to win their third straight Grey Cup over the East Division champion Toronto Argonauts, who took care of business against Montreal Alouettes. We'll get into that a little bit as well. But I think the big story coming out of the West Final, number one, great game.
Yes.
As it pretty much always is. But yeah, could history be repeating itself a little bit? Maybe. I think Drew Brown's a little better than Ryan Dinwiddie. Would be a little more prepared than Ryan Dinwiddie would be.
I would agree with that.
But yeah, late in the game, Zach Collaros gets rolled up on. His ankle didn't so much twist as it looked like it snapped quite hard.
Yes.
Under him, which is I guess both are concerning in just a week turnaround time, especially if it were to be a high ankle sprain. But yeah, we all saw it. There was no hiding it. He tried to run out for the Bombers' final drive of the game, took about 3 steps and was like, nope.
And on came Brown.
And then Drew Brown came in, a couple handoffs, and eventually they punted. So yeah, we've seen this sign before. It's not a broken arm, so there is a chance that Zach Collaros could play next week. Yes. But I mean, the odds of this happening to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers again are astronomical. I mean, at least this time, they're not trying to end the drought. This time, they're coming in having already won 2 Grey Cups. So if Zach Collaros can't come in and they lose because of that, it still sucks for Bomber fans, but it's not quite the, you have got to be kidding me.
Right. That's and as a guy that has lived through that Ryan Dinwiddie moment and was at that Grey Cup game, I can tell you that's exactly what the reaction was. I'm probably about to curse them here. But without Zach Collaros, this team will still win the Grey Cup.
It's very possible, yeah.
And I say this because, as you alluded to, Drew Brown from the preseason onwards, he's got the chance to start from every game he's come in, even on some of the gadget stuff they do. Everything Drew Brown has done has shown that right now he could manage a team. Mm-hmm. I believe that. I'm not going to sit here and say that Drew Brown's going to throw for 700 yards in the Grey Cup, but Drew Brown will come out.
If he does, he's probably going to be the starting quarterback for the Saskatchewan Roughriders next year, and he will completely collapse.
Matt Flynn too, electric boogaloo. I like what I've seen out of Drew Brown. This dates right back to the preseason, and the difference between the Kevin Glenn thing and the Winnipeg thing is you really saw it today that they used that Strevler package with Dakota Prukop a lot. Mm-hmm. They always had that. They used it a few times during the year, but it was like today they decided we're going to run the ball, we're going to use Prukop, we're going to give it to Oliveira, and let's face it, Zach Collaros was, again, for a second consecutive West Final, was not good.
No, he probably should have been intercepted 4 times instead of the once he was.
Easily. Like, if the BC defensive backs had any kind of hands at all, like, this was just a weird...
They'd be receivers.
But, Tiss. But, like, this was just a weird game. Like, it looked like we were going to see the Bombers in Death Star mode to begin this, when you thought they'd blocked a punt right after looking so good, and Nick Dembski having his token long reception that he seems to have once a game. That coming on, like, the first play. Mm-hmm. I thought we were going to see Death Star mode Bombers, which, again, after that Vikings game, I was kind of okay with. And then the correct roughing the passer call, which...
Roughing the kicker, yep.
Roughing the kicker, sorry. Which, weirdly enough, was actually vintage Glenn Suter.
Yes.
That Suter knew. He knew there'd been a change and explained it.
Yeah, because that's one thing he is really up on, because he's often in a lot of these competition and rule committee meetings. Like, he's not, like, part of the committee making decisions, but he's often in the room just listening.
Right, exactly, and that is one thing that he nailed. He said, as of 2 or 3 years ago, you can't touch the plant foot no matter what. You can block a punt, and if you get ball first, you can make contact with, like, the kicking leg, but you can't touch the plant foot, which makes sense because that's how knees blow up. So basically, the punt block's taken off the board. They lead to another punt, goes betwixt some legs and pantaloons, and all of a sudden, it's a ball game. Like, it was weird the entire game, and all the dropped interceptions, and Nathan Rourke wasn't good for 92% of it. Like,
yeah,
it was still a great game, but it was like a great, dumb, chaotic game.
Yeah, not quite to the level of last year's West Final, but it was still all over the place.
Right. So I look at the way that, unlike the Kevin Glenn, Ryan Dinwiddie era, that there are other pieces, there are other plans. That defense...
the defense is the biggest X factor, right?
And they look tired. Like, even though Winnipeg had, like, a substantial lead in time of possession, there was times that defense looked tired near the end of that game. So it was, I think you're going to hear Collaros all week, and you're going to hear Harris all week, and it's going to be a little sickening and kind of annoying. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's relevant if he plays, and I know that's weird to say that about the guy that's probably going to be the MOP, but Winnipeg...
I think it's relevant if he plays. I think if he plays, the Bombers are definitely clear favorites, and it would affect the line a fair bit in my mind. Like, I could see them going from, like, 10-point favorites to, like, 6.5-point favorites if they don't win, kind of thing, right?
100%.
If he doesn't play. And I think it substantially increases their odds of winning. Should he play? Because, we all believe Drew Brown could be a good manager of a single game in that moment. But you still never know. And, when it's the biggest stage of the year, too, it's still not a road I'd rather not have to go down if I was any team.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I know texting with several family members and friends talking about, well, if Collaros is out, we're screwed. And I'm going, I don't think so. Like this
true.
isn't.
It doesn't help.
No, it absolutely doesn't help. I'm not sitting here and saying Zach Collaros is overrated. Rah rah rah. They shouldn't resign him. But like he's still like the best, unequivocally the best quarterback in the CFL. But this is just a Winnipeg team that you look today. How often is your MOP essentially a non-factor? Like,
well, your MOP has probably his worst game of the year.
Yeah, by a
win.
mile.
And you still win fairly. I know the score was close, but it was still a fairly comfortable win, I would say, for them.
Yeah, I would agree. It wasn't really panicky. I think it got panicky about midway through the fourth quarter where Nathan Rourke looked real good.
Yeah, he started to pick it up a bit, and I mean, I kind of went. So there's one decision by Rick Campbell. I know we talk about coaches a lot on the show. We're going to talk about another coach in a bit. I keep going back and forth on when they scored that touchdown late, and it was a 9-point game at that time after the touchdown.
Yes.
And I know, I've seen some people say go for 2, and I don't disagree, but I also didn't disagree with the 1 either, because I'm like, man, if you don't get that 2 and it stays a 2 possession game, that's rough.
Well, that's
the difference for me in that scenario. Like, I still would have absolutely applauded for Rick if he went for 2 to make it a 7 to give yourself a chance to win in regulation if you really want to, or at least increase your odds of tying the game. So I would have been fully in favor and would have supported the decision, but at the same time, like, yeah, I can see why you would want to ensure that this stayed a 1-possession game rather than risking it going back to 2.
Well, and especially I'm with you. I like aggressive. I like aggressive calls. I don't like short field goals. I don't like not going for it on 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, especially when you're trailing, which is something BC did a lot of today, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, that was like starting at about the 8-minute mark, and you could tell it had an emotional toll on both that crowd and the Bombers that they force a 3rd and 3, think they're out of it, then it's like Nathan Rourke doesn't even look at the sidelines.
No.
He knew he was staying in there, and they made some conversions there too. So I thought Rick Campbell coached that game very well.
He did. Overall, he did. That was just one moment where I'm like, maybe. I mean, ultimately, it didn't really matter because in the end, it didn't change anything. But
I mean, 1 possession on a kind of cold day in a playoff game where all sorts of weird shit has happened. You just need 1 tip. You need 1 fumble, 1 roll. And, you're kind of staring opportunity in the face. And I honestly think that being a lifelong Bomber fan, I was expecting that to happen, and it just didn't, which is still maybe the weirdest part of all this for me.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Yeah, there were some coaching decisions today that I did not agree with. You'll find it on 3downnation.com at some point. John Hodge asked me this week if I wanted to write regarding the Alouettes' performance in the Eastern Final. This was he asked me the other day, but we didn't know what the outcome was going to be at the time. But it's like, yeah, I'll revive the good, the bad, and the dumb for the Alouettes in this case.
Right.
And the game provided some content for me, that's for sure. Wasn't sure what the good was going to be for a while because the Alouettes definitely struggled early and didn't have a whole lot going right, but kind of hung around and were able to make a game of it at least. And the bad was certainly setting up to be just a defense that had absolutely no answers for an Argo offense for most of the day.
Yeah. They made McLeod Bethel Thompson look really good.
Yeah, and to his credit, he did play really well as well. And both teams combined almost for 1,000 yards of offense, which you love to see. But then the gods gaveth. And that was, of course, from one Danny Machocha. Now, if you came into at the start of this season, if you told me the Alouettes and the Argos are going to play in the Eastern Final, now remember who the coach of the Alouettes was at the time when the season started, and a coach was going to play a very big role in their team losing the game, I probably would have told you, yeah, that's probably Ryan Dinwiddie.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with you.
To his credit, after a couple sort of brain farts early in this season, Ryan Dinwiddie's been pretty calm and pretty straightforward with his coaching sense. He hasn't really had a real big brain fart in a while, which he kind of did last season and he did for the first few weeks this season, but he's kind of figuring it out now a little bit, and I think he might actually be okay.
Yes, I would, and I want him to be okay. I almost want Grey Cup vindication for Ryan Dinwiddie, but not this year.
Fair enough.
For obvious reasons.
On the other hand, though, Danny Machocha has been a coach in football for a very long time and should know better.
Yes, and a very not well-liked coach that we almost Fraser cursed to the Grey Cup. Yes. And I think the only reason the Fraser curse didn't prevail...
We caught it soon enough and outed it, essentially.
Right. And then you were assigned to cover the game from the Alouettes' perspective.
Yes, so I would like to apologize to any Alouettes fans that listen to this podcast. It appears whoever I write about this year, losing follows them around. The Riders, obviously, for 3/4 of the season. I went and covered the Canadian Bowl on Saturday. The Thunder lost that game. And now I write about the Alouettes, and they lose the East Final. So if you want your opponent to lose, I'm for hire. I'm available to write.
Which, okay, as an aside, I know we joke about the Fraser curse all the time, but I was thinking about this the other day, now that, again, I'll be on the Rush broadcast this year. Mm-hmm. I don't think any team I've been calling a game for has lost the playoff game. Because, U of S women's hockey once, but they won their first championship with me on the mic. Rush won once with me in the booth, once with me as a sideline reporter. Like, it's just like, it's weird that the Fraser curse is such a prevalent thing, but yet when I'm on the team's payroll, it seems to go away.
Yeah.
Just as a total aside on the Fraser curse. And it's almost like you have an effect to cancel out the Fraser curse somehow.
Sometimes, yeah.
Today being that day. And,
yes. Danny Machocha, for some reason... coached like a guy who is scared of losing his job.
Despite the fact
that he is allegedly not going to be coaching next season. He keeps saying it.
And he's the one making the decision.
He keeps saying it. No one believes him, quite frankly. I've yet to meet anyone who believes that Danny Machocha will not be the head coach of the Montreal Alouettes next season.
Right.
But we'll see. Maybe we'll all be proven wrong. The Montreal Alouettes better hope that Danny Machocha is not the head coach of the Montreal Alouettes next year. I think he's done a fine job as a GM. But clearly, the modern game of football is not his thing.
No.
There were two particularly egregious field goals in this game. One was really, really bad. And it didn't necessarily cost them the game per se, but it did not set his team up for success in these situations.
No.
And it came late in the fourth quarter. I think it was about 4 minutes left. On a 2nd and 10, they dial up a handoff to William Stanback. Which, in its own right, is kind of weird.
But it's usually a sign that you're...
Yes. Like, normally, 99.9 times out of 100, if I see a team hand off on 2nd and 10 in the CFL, I'm like, okay, they're going for it on 3rd down.
Yeah.
Or they really think they have them caught in something or something. But in all likelihood, you're going for it on 3rd down, especially red zone adjacent.
Yes, and especially late in a game.
Late in a playoff game where you've been trailing all game and you need touchdowns.
And you have all the momentum because this is a Montreal team that at one point was down 21-3.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm fine. Whatever. I'll live with this run if you do the right thing on the next down.
Right.
Instead, on 3rd and 5, which is a manageable 3rd down, since had he been stuffed and they were still and 10, okay, maybe.
Right.
But instead it was 3rd and 5, which is a manageable distance, especially for a Trevor Harris who had only thrown 5 incompletions in the game and put up nearly 400 yards. Instead, out comes David Cote for the 35-yard field goal to cut the lead from 10-7, and you still need a touchdown. Danny Machocha was promptly rewarded by the football karma gods by never getting the ball back as the Argos killed the clock and the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Good job, Danny. Way to make a loss look more respectable, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing. There was 4 minutes, 25 seconds left when he made that decision, and
I mean, to his credit, he's been consistent about this.
Yeah,
like all season, I've rolled my eyes at a lot of his sort of conservative decision making, but at least I will say, at least he went down doing what he does. This is obviously his philosophy. It's not right, but at least you consistently know what you're going to get out of the guy. It drives me more bananas when coaches waffle back and forth on whether they're aggressive or not.
Right. This is his DNA. This is what makes him not a very modern or progressive coach, along with other things I still remember hearing from people in his previous days as a coach. But it's just funny because this is even something that you're starting to see the NFL come around on. Mm-hmm. And when the NFL is doing it before the CFL, that's when you know that, generally it's not something that was all that common, but seems to be becoming more common now that teams will go for it down 10 rather than kick the safe field goal and try to get the ball back, right?
Yeah, like it's one thing, okay, it's 3rd and 5 at like the 40. Okay, sure, kick the field goal.
Right.
But when you're near the red zone or in the red zone or even worse in goal situations, it's a lot easier to get back into field goal range than it is touchdown range.
Well, especially in the CFL.
Yeah.
Like it almost seems like whenever teams need to get into field goal range, it just sort of finds a way to happen, especially because you seem to be in go for it on 3rd down mode, and it's not hard to pick up 3 or 4 yards per carry in the CFL at all, lots of professional football leagues.
Yeah, like late in games in football in general, it seems when the offense really needs to do something, you generally have a pretty good shot at doing it.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
the defense is tired. You kind of get if you get that first down, the sort of the momentum kind of starts to roll a little bit, and you get in rhythm, and it's just hard to stop in those moments in time across any sort of football league. You see it all the time. It doesn't always necessarily succeed, but you're going to generally give yourself a chance to get in field goal range or get down for the touchdown if you need to.
And I think it's a damn shame that Montreal shot themselves in the foot a bit, because I honest to God think that Montreal-Winnipeg is a better matchup than Montreal-Toronto, not only for eyeballs, but in terms of upsetting the two-time defending champions, in terms of likely entertainment of the game, in terms of having some star power, right? Like you and I were talking in our preamble, like Tyson Philpott, like that
was a coming up party for that kid in that game.
Oh my God, there's a great Canadian talent. I mean, it's weird to say because I remember all those years it seemed to be BC Montreal and we all hated it, but BC Montreal would have been the best thing for the league between Philpott and Rourke, and instead we get this contrived, already starting to be shoved down our throat halfway through the West Final game of Andrew Harris coming back.
Does nothing for me. Like coming into this weekend, out of the 4 scenarios of what we could have seen the Grey Cup to be, this was my least favorite. This was the one that I did not want to see, and of course, it's the one we got.
The Gasson curse?
I don't know.
For me, obviously I want to see my Bombers there. I did, but the narrative of the Andrew Harris thing is just, it drives me nuts, because if you even look at his stats, because again, I do research now, he only touched the ball 10 times. He only had 9 rushes and still got almost outgained by Ouellette, who went 6 for 38 versus Harris's 9 for 42. Yeah. Like, Toronto, it just seems like you have to force some sort of storyline
That's my thing with them this year. Like, this version of the Argos, I don't have any feelings toward them one way or the other. Like, I don't think they're great. I don't think they're, like, exciting. I don't think they're...
No.
And I don't think they're, like, evil and easily hateable either. I'm just like, I don't know. They're just there. Well, they play decent football. They're not terrible to watch. They're not great to watch. They're just kind of there. I don't know.
They're almost McLeod Bethel Thompson by this point.
Yeah.
They're a guy that they seemingly want to replace every year that is now, like, 3rd in all-time passing yards on that team. Like... You're right. They're not young and exciting. They're a very veteran team. They don't do anything unique or cool, and I don't think they're going to move the needle. And this is a game.
Like, I agree with you, and we've talked about this before. I think on the show that I think BC Montreal would have been the best Grey Cup for the league for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
The biggest being, I think Nathan Rourke is obviously a ratings generating machine. And the league is healthier when Quebec is invested in the CFL.
Yes.
So there would have been a lot of reasons for all that. I think even if you got Winnipeg, Montreal, you get Quebec invested, and that's big for the league.
Well, and
we've seen Toronto in the Grey Cup every 5 years, and every time they're like, "Oh, is this the one?" No, we know it doesn't make a difference in the long run in terms of what's going to happen to that franchise.
Well, and as well too, you have a Montreal team that beat Winnipeg this year.
Yeah.
At IGF, there's
basically their only real loss all year.
Yeah, because the other losses were in cruise control, and I mean, you have Montreal come in there and beat Winnipeg, so you could have had that storyline. I think this is going to be a real ugly number for the CFL for this Grey Cup.
I'm a little worried about it, to be honest. Yeah.
I'm thinking sub 2 million. Like, you're not getting the casual viewers with that joke of a Grey Cup halftime show.
No, and how late you announced it and how little pump up it's felt like there's been for the Grey Cup this year.
That's okay. That's another great observation for our most dedicated listener that's related to me, my Grammy. Grammy pointed out, and she was bang on, nail on the head, that there's like no hype for the Grey Cup game. There's no commercials on the other shows, on CTV. You're not really seeing a lot of it. It seems like everything already, even today, I kept the game on after the West Final. First thing we're hearing about is the World Cup, which I get.
Understandable.
Huge.
Like, Canada's in it. This is a huge deal. I get it. Side note, that's why I believe we haven't seen James Duthie through the playoffs like we normally do. I assume he's already in Qatar.
Yes. Yeah, I think I saw Lindsay Hamilton also posted that she's there as well. But you have a massive sporting event for this nation coming up.
Mm-hmm.
You have a team that's already won it a couple times that...
It's such a weird thing to think about because so rarely in sports, especially these days, I don't care how small the league is, does anyone three-peat. So this is actually, like, historically a really big deal, but it's also kind of hard to get jazzed up about at the same time.
Well, and again, it comes down to...
Unless you're a Bomber fan, of course.
Even at that. And I hate to say it, and I might be vilified for this. I'm sure there's people that are going to think this is
vilified? Never.
No. I don't burn down bridges with nuclear fire and then somehow find a way to repair them years later. That'll be a funny announcement coming up here right away. But I there were stretches during this BC game that I went, do I care? Like, I just come off, again, I just watched a highly emotionally invested game between my Vikings and the Bills, and my heart rate was through the roof, and it was such a great game. And then when it looked like the Bombers were going to go Death Star mode, I was like, I guess we're back in the Grey Cup. By the end of it, yeah, I cared. I was emotionally invested, but, like, I can tell you, I wasn't, even amongst us Winnipeg fans, I wasn't getting the same level of, like, normally my phone is buzzing off the hook. Like, the last two West Finals, it's like I'm chatting with like 8-9 friends, family, everything like that. Everybody was kind of meh. I recorded the game. I'll see what happens later.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking, can I bet on an over/under on TV ratings?
I don't know.
Because if I can, I'm taking the under 2 million because I think I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong too, but I mean, yeah, like Montreal, BC, I think would have been, relatively speaking, a ratings bonanza.
Yep.
Even Winnipeg, Stars. Montreal gets a bit of a bump.
Yeah. You get that RDS, you get that big RDS number in there. Like, I don't know. It seems meh.
Yeah.
It's kind of
like what we'll see in a few days. What this week did, and that may change my opinion a little bit. Like, if the division final numbers come out and they end up being pretty solid, and they're kind of historically in line with what we've seen, then yeah, I think, okay, yeah, it'll probably reach the 3 mil mark.
Yeah, but I think your halftime show killed your casual viewer. Your lack of storylines, minus the ones that TSN has already come up with and are trying to desperately shove down our throats with Harris and the revenge game and everything. You're not really going to care. You might not have the league's most outstanding player in the game. Like, I hope that 5 million people watch this. I'm sure the halftime show is going to be entertaining as hell. I'm sure
it's not like the halftime show. I'm sure will be fine. It's not the artist's fault of all this stuff that happened. So,
well, that's it. I'm going to watch it, and I will probably enjoy it. I'll be the first to admit it. I like, whether I find some miracle way to be there or whether I'm sitting on my couch, it's going to be a good show. I'm sure the music's going to be great, but it's just, again, Lacey came downstairs while I was watching the game at one point, and this is a person who enjoys country music looking at me going, they only got half a Florida Georgia line? Like, there's your casual country fans' take on this Grey Cup. So, but whatever. Bombers by 1 million.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.